Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So I have wanted to do this video for such a long time, and the other day I came across an article and it said that the holiday time is the most stressful time of the year for most people. So I figured this was a good time to put out a video about anxiety and stress and my tips and tricks for dealing with it. So one thing that's a big trigger of stress for me is when my environment is messy and cluttered. It instantly makes me feel extremely stressed out. So I've made it a priority to make sure that my living environment is as clutter-free and organized as possible. That's part of the reason why I started making videos, to be honest with you. You guys know that I've done so many different videos on organization for all different areas of the house. I find that the less stuff I have, the less stressed I feel. So something that goes hand in hand with that is daily planning and writing all of my jumbled thoughts that are going on in my mind down on paper, and having a plan of attack just makes me feel so much more in control and organized and peaceful. The next big tip I have is monitor the frequency that you're eating. When your blood sugar drops, what happens is your body releases the stress hormone cortisol, and you are much more likely to feel stressed and anxious. And I was personally noticing the biggest pattern in my life is it was times that I was hungry that I was having anxiety attacks and I was reacting poorly in situations. So now what I do is I just monitor my eating and I make sure that I'm eating frequently enough. Specifically, I try to have protein-rich snacks in between meals. So things I like to eat are bananas, nuts, protein drinks, energy bars, anything that's just a solid snack that I can have to make sure that my blood sugar is nice and steady, and that helps keep my mood stable and steady as well. So next we're going to talk about supplements. You always want to consult with a medical doctor before taking any supplements, especially if you're taking other prescriptions and if you are pregnant or nursing or anything like that. So that's my disclaimer. But the first supplement I take that helps me the absolute most is magnesium. There is a very high correlation between people with anxiety and magnesium deficiency. It's involved in over 300 different bodily processes, and one of those is your body's response to stress. So the best way to get magnesium is through your diet. That would be leafy greens, bananas, dark chocolate, nuts, almonds, and pumpkin seeds in particular are high in magnesium. But if you're not getting enough magnesium through your diet, some other options are taking an Epsom salt bath. Epsom salts are rich in magnesium and it absorbs really well through the skin. There's magnesium powders that you can put in your drink, and there's just magnesium pills that you can take. Magnesium citrate is the one that I will take if I'm not doing the other things that I mentioned. So the next supplement is something called GABA, and GABA basically helps calm down your rapidly firing neurons. When you're stressed out, your brain is firing really rapidly, and GABA will calm things down. So in terms of GABA supplements, I read recently that GABA on its own does not cross the blood-brain barrier very well, and a more effective way to get it in your system is through l-theanine. So l-theanine can be found in green tea, about 5 to 10 milligrams in a regular cup of green tea, and up to 50 milligrams in matcha green tea. But the recommended dose if you're dealing with anxiety issues is between 100 and 200 milligrams a day. So I personally get that through a supplement that I take, and I'm going to have more detailed information about all of the stuff I just mentioned down in the description box so you can do your own research. This is just what personally works the best for me. The next thing that helps me a lot is having constant reinforcement and constant reminders of healthy thought patterns. A lot of the time when you are falling down into the trap of anxiety, you have negative thought patterns that are repeating over and over in your head. So I like to replace those with more positive thought patterns, and I do that in two ways. The first way is I reread certain books that have the most impact on me in terms of my mindset when dealing with stress. The first one is Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and they have a bunch of different ones. Don't sweat the small stuff at work, in love, in general. So every night before bed, I will read 1 or 2 chapters just to constantly keep it in my mind. If I read the book and I don't go back to it, I'll forget what it says. So I like to reread a little bit of it every night. So another thing that I do is I have reminders set for me in places where I'm more likely to be stressed. So one area for me is when I'm driving. So I actually have the CD of Don't Sweat the Small Stuff playing in my car all the time. So I have those positive reinforcement and that positive message playing for me when I'm in a high stress zone. The other place where I tend to get stressed is when I'm working at my computer. So I have under my monitor a quote that really helps me, and that is, "Will this matter a year from now?" A lot of times the things that we're really stressing about today are things we're not even going to remember in a year from now. So when I think about that, it helps me put things back in perspective. So what I recommend you do is find whatever books or quotes or messages that really resonate with you in terms of dealing with your stress, and put them in the places where you tend to be the most stressed out. So they're there for you and you have that reminder when you need it and where you need it. So the last thing I'm going to talk about today is practicing mindfulness. Basically, a lot of anxiety lives in the past and in the future. You're worrying about what might happen, or you're feeling guilty about something that happened in the past. When you're really in the present moment, it's difficult to feel anxious or stressed. So meditation is one of the best ways to practice mindfulness, but for people who have an anxious mind, the thought of meditating could be too much, because you're basically sitting there with nothing but your own thoughts, and that could be scary. And sometimes that's scary for me as well. So some easier ways to practice mindfulness without just full-on meditating is trying to be more present when you're doing day-to-day tasks. So when you're eating your meal, for example, instead of letting your mind wander, force yourself to come back to the present moment and think about the food that you're eating. Think about how it tastes. Think about the texture. There are also some really great phone apps that help with mindfulness. The first one that I use is something called the mindfulness bell, and you can set it to go off a certain number of times a day, and it can go off randomly. And when that bell goes off, it's just a trigger to remind yourself to rein it in and to think about how you're feeling in that moment and bring you back to the present moment. So another app I found recently that I'm obsessed with at the moment, and it's helped me sleep a lot better, it is called Stop, Breathe, and Think. So you answer a little quiz saying how you're feeling in that moment, and based on how you're feeling, it will bring you through a guided meditation of 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So those are just two of my favorite apps for mindfulness, and those are all of my tips that I'm going to share today before I go off into many more tangents, because there's a lot more I can say, but those are the core things I do that help me the most. I want to hear from you guys. What are the things that help you the most when dealing with stress and anxiety? Leave them in the comments, and I want you guys to also read the comments and see what other people are saying, because I think we could all really help support each other in this. So that's it for today's video. I hope that you found some useful information, and of course I'm going to have everything that I talked about in a lot more detail down in the description box, so check that out if you have any other questions, and I will see you guys next week with a new video. Babe, you okay? You seem a little stressed.
No, I'm not okay, hon.
Oh, what's wrong?
I almost can't even talk about it.
Annie, well, we're married now, so you can tell me anything. I'm here for you. What's up?
Okay. It's pretty bad.
Okay.
I'm not doing as well as I used to in my fantasy football league.
What? That's your problem.
I'm sorry, did you not hear me? I'm the defending champion from last year. My quarterback's injured. You know, my wide receiver, he hasn't been playing that well. My team's falling apart.
That's what you're stressing about right now.
Don't belittle my problems.